Oi! Yes! You guys, UFC 270, the first pay-per-view of the year. We got it coming up on Saturday, January 22nd. I can't wait for this card. I can't wait for the main event. I can't wait for the co-main event. I also can't wait for this. Just the Tip tonight, episode number 18, if I remember correctly, is the first monetized episode of Just the Tip. I have all you guys to thank for that. We got you guys here in the chat. We got to say what's up to my guy JSJ23 here taking notes, saying good evening to everyone except A to Z Towing. What a great reference from last week's story time with Uncle Weezy. Good to have you here, JSJ. Thanks for hanging out. We got my guy David Milks in the room saying let's go. And that was just great from JSJ there. And we got my guy Chris saying, oi, I'll share this now so you don't read it by accident, but you can if you want. My old boss was gay and once said just the tip is unacceptable. He would not approve. I hope he would approve, but I get what you're saying, Chris. It's good to have you here, man. And we got Addicted to Combat saying, craving my evening tip. What up, chat? What up, Addicted to Combat? Thank you for hanging out with us on Tuesday night. And then we've got the first ever donation in the history of Uncle Weezy's YouTube channel, the first ever super chat, graciously given by the guy who got me started in this business, DFS by the numbers, saying, oi, yes, thank you for the first ever donation on my channel. I can't believe it. Ring a ding ding. Super chat number one. Thank you, Brady. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for everything that you've done in order to make this all possible for me, man. I appreciate it, dude. We got Chris saying, officially almost time. Oi, Unk and fellow degenerate family. Great heavyweight matchup here in Stats Wiz Unk to break it down. You got that right, Chris. Big Brady always in the house. You damn right. And Metalingus saying, oi. What's up, Metalingus? And we got Daz Files saying, good evening all. Oi, oi, oi. And we got DFS saying, oi, everyone. And Daz Files with the second super chat in the history of Uncle Weezy's YouTube channel. Big up yourself, Daz Files, all the way down under. Thank you so much for contributing to the channel. It means so much. Ring a ding ding. Super chat number 2. Thank you, Daz Files. We got Jeffrey Coringold saying oi. We got K Robbie saying oi. We got Chris for the love saying Weezy getting paid to give the tip. And we are all watching. Respect to all the donos, all jokes aside, I agree. I couldn't agree more. And we got Matthew Buchanan saying yes. And we've got K Robbie saying looking fresh, Weezy. Yes, thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's Tuesday night. I always get dressed up for you guys when we're doing just the tip. And plus, it's a pay-per-view card. And it's the first ever monetized video that I've done on my channel. So a lot of things to celebrate here. But most of all, what we're celebrating tonight is this fantastic UFC 270 card we got from top to bottom. And so many opportunities on here to bet. So many spots that I already like. The complete opposite of last week. So it's probably going to be a pretty heavy betting card for me, even though I've only just gotten started so far. We got Mark Schillingberg saying, yo, Weezy, I'm going to hang as long as I can. I'm a bit under the weather. Sorry to hear that, Mark. I'm stoked. This is my birthday card. Yes. Happy birthday, man. I just had a birthday about 3 weeks ago. But happy birthday to you, Mark, and hopefully you feel better real soon, brother. We got Matthew Buchanan saying, can barely see Weezy's beautiful mug with all these new ads. Oh my God, are there really a lot of ads on there? I can't even see it, dude. I don't have it up on my screen, so that's wild. I'm going to have to check that out on my screen here. Was a great story. Looking forward to the next one. Yeah, we're going to have some story times coming up. We got 13 fights on this card, though, so I don't think I'm going to have time for a story time for you this week, but we will have some more coming up for sure. Cuban Assassin saying, let's get it. Booze, Siggs, and Keith Peterson. The Holy Trinity right there, Cuban Assassin. Thanks for joining us. We got Pascal Roshan saying money bags. I love those money bags. If we always leave every Saturday after every UFC event from that casino or that sports book with the sacks with the dollar signs on them and maybe one of those old masks like Jimmy Jack Funk used to wear back in the day, that's how we want to be leaving the casino or the sportsbook every single time on Saturday. And Skywalker DFS saying, "What's up, Weezy? It's good to have you in here, Skywalker." Thank you guys all for hanging out live on a Tuesday night. We got 13 fights to break down, so I'm going to see if my guy Smooth Jimmy is ready to go here. And if he is, we are going to blast into this first fight and take you through all 13 on the UFC 270 card. My guy Jimmy, the consummate professional, always ready. I'm ready too, so let's go here. We've got the UFC stats page up. We got the Tapology page up with the event. Now, the thing it is, like right now on UFC stats, they don't really have what looks like a definite order for these fights yet. And on Tapology, they've been shifting it around all week. So I'm going to go through these fights in almost the same exact order that we went through them on Stat Diggers on Sunday night. And the link to Stat Diggers is in the description of this video. The link to the main event breakdown I did on DFS by the Numbers channel is in the description of this video. And the link to all the free stats that I'll be going over in this video, that is also can be downloaded for free in the description of this video. Thank you guys for hanging out. Let's get into it here. 13 fights to break down. And we're going to start with Della Maddalena versus Pete Rodriguez. So we've got two 25-year-olds here, you guys. It's going to be Jack with a 2-inch height advantage. And let's see if they've got Pete Rodriguez's reach updated here on UFC stats. 73-inch reach, and they're calling him a switch stance fighter. So 73. And, or wait, is that Jack? I didn't accidentally. No, that is him. Okay. So they got the same measurables here, you guys, other than a 2-inch height advantage for Jack. We both got a 73-inch reach, and both of these guys fight out of both stances. It's Pete Rodriguez fighting out of Dominate MMA, and Jack Della out of Scrappy MMA out of Australia, and Pete right here in the United States. Jack's got 8 more fights. Pete Rodriguez has got a very small amount of cage time, you guys. All 4 of his wins, I believe, are in the first round. Let's make sure that that's the case. But he does have an amateur career, does Pete Rodriguez, where he had 9 fights. So, yes, all 4 fights in the first round. So Jack, he has about 4.5 minutes of pro cage time. And then we see here he had a amateur career that spanned from 2016 to 2019, where he had losses to Terry Lytles and Christopher Yanis and wins over Mario Bejarano, George Soapy, Clayton Falamoe, Jordan Holmes, Donovan Cross, Mike Schlagek, and then Nate Alio. And then the pro wins are over Jorge Olea, Yasser Guzman, Jose Luis Rios, and then the most experienced guy that he's fought is Roberto Pixley, who was 5-1. And he has starched all of these dudes inside of 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So Pete Rodriguez, dead game, coming out of the United States, is a guy with only 4 fights. He's a guy that's finishing people out inside of 2.5 minutes. He shows a little bit of wrestling. He shows some good power, but frankly, the level of competition that he's faced hasn't been great yet. While Jack was a regional scene champion in Australia. So Pete's got a 100% finish rate. We don't have it listed up here. And Jack's got a 90% finish rate. So in these guys' 14 wins, 13 of them have come inside the distance. And in Jack's only 2 losses, he's been finished in both of them. Those were the first 2 fights of his professional career when he was finished. Once by KO, once by submission, and ever since then, he's been on a 10-fight win streak. So Jack showed some really nice boxing in his Contender Series fight. He landed 7.2 significant strikes a minute and only absorbed 4.27, 48% accuracy, 65% striking defense. He showed a really nice diversity of attacks. He was switching stances. He had nice power. The guy is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, but we didn't see him get any takedowns in that fight. And he was taken down one time. He was out-controlled about 16% to 7.5%. But Jack is a big favorite in this spot. Pete is taking this fight on about 1 week's notice here. And with only 4 professional fights and a very low level of competition that he's faced, I'm going to say that Jack Della Maddalena should absolutely get this done pretty easily, as long as Pete doesn't knock him out in the first 2 minutes like we've seen him do quite a few times already in his career. So like we say, this is a slam dunk fight, doesn't go to decision bet. This is what you look for. Guys that have never been out of the first round, taking a fight on short notice. And then you got a guy like Jack here who has finished 9 of his 10 pro wins. And even the fight on the Contender Series against Ante Lucia. Lucia took some serious square shots to the head. The guy is just incredibly tough. So, I do think that Jack's going to finish this guy inside the distance. And right now we see the line here on Jack at minus 335 on DraftKings and BetOnline, minus 325 on FanDuel. We don't have many props out for this fight yet for some reason. These guys are really slacking. But the under 1.5 is sitting at minus 110. I think there's some value there, you guys. I think that this fight, you see a guy who's never been past 2.5 minutes, and all you need is for this fight to finish in 7.5 minutes. Jack does tend to finish fights a little bit later on, but it's still a pretty good bet because we just don't know what Pete, when he steps up to a level of competition like this, what he's going to look like, because these guys that he has faced thus far don't look like they're anywhere near UFC level. Maddalena inside the distance is plus 120 on 5 dimes, plus 105 here at Betway. I think there's some value there. I think if you're going to bet Maddalena, instead of betting him minus 335 on a guy making his debut coming all the way from Australia, maybe you just figure since Pete's never been past the 2.5 minute mark, that you can get that implied probability bump and you can wager less in order to win the same amount of money and give up that, give up the decision part of it and just say Maddalena inside the distance minus 150. Not a bad look here. I think it's probably the best way to play it. But anyway, yeah, the pick is going to be Jack Della Maddalena by second round knockout over Pete Rodriguez, who's making his debut here. I think Pete's going to definitely need some more work before we see him be at this level. The second fight we'll talk about tonight, you guys, is no, Jack inside the distance is not plus money. I read that wrong, Brady. It is minus. I read it as plus first, but it is not plus. It is minus 150. So, yeah, that was my bad. I got a little excited there for a second, but then I realized that is not a plus. That is a minus, and it makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. So the next fight is going to be Vanessa Demopoulos versus Silvana Gomez Juarez. I've already broken this fight down like 4 times already, so I'm not going to do it again. You can look at last week's Just the Tip. It is time-stamped if you want to see a deeper breakdown of this fight. But the way I'm looking at this one, you guys, is Demopoulos is your grappler and Gomez is your striker. Gomez has a kickboxing background. She's got great calf kicks. She's got good lateral movement around the cage. Really nice straight punches down the pipe. While Vanessa is a little bit sloppier as a striker, but she's very dangerous on the ground. The problem is that in Vanessa's 2 UFC fights, she's attempted 7 takedowns and gotten none of them, and has only managed to control her opponents a grand total of 7% of her UFC 2 fights. So, when you see somebody with grappling as their distinctive competency unable to get the fight to the ground, I would recommend that you don't lay juice here on Vanessa Demopoulos. However, she has switched her training camp from Black House to Fight Ready MMA. We do know those cats down at Fight Ready bring some great game plans. They have some great wrestling and are really able to help people with that part of their game. So if we can see Vanessa Demopoulos make those kind of improvements that we know she needs to make, if she's going to be successful in the strawweight division of the UFC, she's going to need to start being able to take her opponent to the mat, or she's going to need to be the one that decides where the fight takes place. And she's been completely unable to do that yet. And she hasn't been able to stop takedowns on her own right, as she is, well, yeah, her takedown defense is 33%. She's allowed 2 of the 3 takedown attempts that she's shot at against her, and she's giving up 51% control time while only controlling her opponent 7% of the time. So she can be dangerous while she's being controlled, Vanessa Demopoulos. She has an excellent inverted triangle choke here, but unfortunately right now, Vanessa Demopoulos is the favorite. You would have to pay Minus 140 here to bet her. And last week you could have got her at almost a pick'em. So now it seems like you got to pay up for Vanessa. And you're paying up and you're giving yourself that implied probability bump that's close to a 60%. She has to win this fight 6 out of 10 times in order for you to be profitable at minus 140. And the thing is, you're betting that what you're going to see are improvements that we haven't seen yet. You know, we need to see these wrestling improvements out of Vanessa Demopoulos before we can bet them. So I think right now the value on this fight is if Vanessa is unable to get the fight to the ground and Silvana can run her boxing game and kickboxing game and outpoint Vanessa from the outside. Silvana Juarez by decision is plus 250, you guys. And for those of you who have seen Vanessa Demopoulos fight, she's almost impossible to stop. She's incredibly tough. She's got that Spartan blood running through her veins. You're not stopping this woman, even though Silvana has stopped 8 of her 10 professional wins inside the distance. I think she'd need a shovel in order to stop Vanessa Demopoulos. So if you are on the Juarez side, if you think that Demopoulos hasn't made those improvements to her game, if she's not going to be able to dictate where this fight takes place, then I think a great bet here is Juarez by decision. I do think Vanessa Demopoulos will have made enough improvements in order to look minus 140 if she can get her wrestling game going. However, I just think it's too much of a price to pay. I'd like to see these improvements before I bet them. So I think that my favorite bet for this fight is Juarez by decision. But other than that, I don't think I will be betting it. I think I will be staying away, you guys. The next fight is another fight that I've broken down about 3 times already, so I'm not going to do it again. This one was Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week for the last card of last year, if I remember correctly. But I don't remember whether it was Barcelos' corner or Henry's corner that wound up catching COVID, so we had to push this fight back. I still see this fight exactly the same way. I got Hani Barcelos by ass shaving here. He's just really, really good everywhere, and I'll take you through the stats real quick, you guys. Landing one more significant strike than he absorbs, landing at a 53% clip, averaging 1% a knockdown for total significant strikes landed and about 0.8 knockdown for 15 minutes. He lands one more significant strike than he absorbs, even though his opponents throw 2.63 more significant strike attempts than Hani Barcelos does. Hani Barcelos had some of the best striking defense you'll see in any division out there at 66%. He's never been knocked down in 6 UFC fights. He gets his takedowns at over a 50% clip, despite the fact that he's only attempted 3 more takedowns than his opponents have. He gets 1.59 takedown differential per minute over his opponents, and he outcontrols his opponents at a 6-to-1 ratio, 24.684, 4% or against, and 92.31% takedown defense in 6 UFC fights. And he's actually beating guys that have a win-loss ratio that is 1.5-to-1, but he's not beating tremendously experienced competition thus far. But then again, the names on his resume like Valley of Taha, Said Nurmagomedov, and Chris Gutierrez are all very impressive. And if you watch the Victor Henry fight against Lavrentiev, we see that once Victor Henry gets taken down, he has a very difficult time getting back up. And Hani Barcelos is an excellent wrestler who's trained with the Brazilian Olympic wrestling team. I think that Hani Barcelos is better everywhere, and we have Hani Barcelos, you guys, winning this fight by ass shaving. Next fight, Jasmine Jasudavicius against Kay Hansen. This fight will be taking place in the 125-pound division. Kay will be making her flyweight debut in this fight. Kay's going to be 10 years younger in this spot, 22 years old compared to 32 for Jasmine. Jasmine's 5 inches taller and going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here. She's training out of Niagara Top Team, while Kay Hansen training out of 10th Planet in Buena Park, I believe. United States for Kay Hansen, Canada for Jasmine Jasudavicius. It's Kay, even though she's 10 years younger than Jasmine, that she's the more experienced mixed martial artist. And as a matter of fact, she has 4 more professional fights and 60 more minutes in the pro cage and a 1.5-year longer career than Jasmine does. So we see Jasmine's been training MMA less than 3 years. She's very inexperienced and didn't even start training MMA until the age of 29. Okay, so we see Kay Hansen with 2 UFC level fights, Jasmine with 1. It was a Contender Series fight, and that the cage time is 12 more minutes for Kay Hansen. The finish rates for these two, we've got a 86% finish rate for Kay Hansen. Sorry about that. My math in my head isn't always as good as it should be. But yeah, we've got Kay finishing 6 of her 7 wins inside the distance. She's finished, let's see, 3 by submission, and four by submission and 2 by knockout. And Jasmine has finished 3 of her 6 wins, 1 by submission, 2 by knockout. And Kay has been finished once by knockout, and Jasmine has never been finished. So these ladies have only been finished 1 time out of 5 fights. So they're both pretty durable. When we see what Kay's doing striking-wise in the UFC, she lands 3.57 significant strikes a minute and absorbs 3.03. She's got a 59% striking accuracy and a 54% striking defense, while Jasmine lands about 3.33 more significant strikes per minute than she absorbs, and throws a lot more than her opponents do at 10.87 per minute to 8.8 for her opponents. The striking defense sitting right down here around 50% for Jasmine, and it looks worse than that. She looks like she gets hit with everything that gets thrown at her. I don't like Jasmine's striking defense at all. Kay's is a little bit better, but not spectacular by any stretch of the imagination. Neither one of these ladies, in my opinion, is much of a striker. They're both a little bit better on the ground. Jasmine has a high-level wrestling background. That was her martial art prior to being in MMA, while Kay Hansen, I think she's one of these girls that saw Ronda Rousey when she was 12 and decided, I'm going to be a mixed martial artist. And, and here she is now, and she is 7-4, very tough to deal with. She's lost a lot of close fights against some really tough competition. And she is an absolute savage on the ground. I hate this matchup for Jasmine. While she's 5 inches taller and has a 5-inch reach advantage, I think it's going to be really easy for Kay Hansen to pressure this girl because she's not fantastic on the feet. She is very hittable. And even if her takedown defense holds up, I think that this fight's going to the ground at some point. Because Jasmine is a great wrestler and she can get the fight to the ground if she wants to, but I don't think she's going to want to be on the ground with Kay Hansen. I think that's going to be a big, big problem for her. Kay Hansen, a 10th planet, brown belt. We saw the armbar finish against Jin Yu Fry was just absolutely spectacular. And she did that at the age of 20. She's 22 now. She hasn't even fought, you guys, in 15 months. A young lady like Kay Hansen, who's as motivated as she is going to be getting better in leaps and bounds at this point of her career. Jasmine, she brings a lot of really great attributes to the table. You gotta love a woman that can wrestle, because any of these wrestlers are very good at dictating where the fight takes place. They can use their wrestling in reverse to keep it on the feet if they feel they're better there. And if they feel that they're getting smoked on the feet, they can get that fight to the ground. So she's got that base. She's got a great frame for the flyweight division here, being 68-inch reach and 5'7". So she'll be big. She's got good conditioning from what I've seen so far from her. And she's got that, she throws her punches straight. She uses her knees, which is very good for somebody of her height. So there's a lot of things to like here, but I don't think she's going to be able to use her wrestling to win minutes, because I think as soon as this thing gets to the ground, Kay is going to be in control, whether she's on her back or whether she's on top. And Kay's wrestling is pretty good in its own right. Now, she's only 4 of 16 on her takedowns, but when she got that armbar over Jin Yu Fry, she didn't even get that takedown. She just got the whizzer went for the trip 2 straight times. And then on the third one, she just put her leg around her back and then isolated the arm. So she didn't even really get that takedown, but she got the submission. So Kay Hansen, while she's only gotten 4 of her 16 takedown attempts, I think what's important when I watched her, especially in the Jin Yu Fry fight, was she does a great job chaining these takedown attempts together. So she may not get the first one or the second one, but she'll chain 3 or 4 together over a 10 or 15 second span, and she'll get that third or fourth takedown. And once she's on the ground, I think she's going to really destroy Jasmine down there. Jasmine just got her blue belt. And, back, when Jasmine wasn't even a professional mixed martial artist, Kay Hansen was out there fighting and almost beating Erin Blanchfield at 125. So if you think that Erin Blanchfield would smoke Jasmine, I think Kay Hansen would too, because Kay Hansen had a very close fight with her that she lost by majority decision here back in 2018. So, almost 4 years ago, 3 years and 3 months ago, which is almost a year before Jasmine Jasudavicius started mixed martial arts. This girl is out here having wars with Erin Blanchfield, beating Sharon Jacobson, beating Helen Peralta, beating Gabby Romero, beating Emily King, and she lost via ground and pound back in 2018 to Kai Schwartz. And since then, she's been on a bit of a roll here, beating Sharon Jacobson. She lost to Maddalena Sormova via split decision back in 2019, who I believe now is 11-4. So she's legit. And then Kay also, wow, I hate when it goes all the way to beat Lyra Pearson, Jin Yu Fry, and then had a very close fight with Corey McKenna, who's a really good grappler in her own right. But I think that the grappling advantage here for Kay Hansen is huge, and I feel like she's going to be able to get this fight to the ground however she wants to. And I think that reach advantage for Jasmine Jasudavicius is going to be it's going to be nullified by the pressure, because that's the easiest game plan whenever somebody has a big reach advantage over you, is just to pressure the shit out of them. Do what John Makdessi did to Ignacio Bahamondes in his UFC debut. Just march him down. Don't let him get his feet set. Don't let him get comfortable. And I think Kay will just do that. I think she'll shoot for takedowns. She can even pull guard if she wants to. But yeah, I got the Kay Hansen winning this one by second round submission inside the distance. I am going to be taking a very long look at the Kay Hansen money line here. It does still look like there is some money coming in on Jasmine here at around plus 200. So I would like to see if I could get Kay around minus 200. And I'm also going to be looking at Kay Hansen inside the distance here at plus 285 and Kay Hansen by submission at plus 450. Kay Hansen by submission at plus 450 is very interesting, you guys, and something that we went over on Stat Diggers here. I know I'm spending a little bit too much time on this fight, but look at these wins for Kay Hansen. Jin Yu Fry, 226 round 3, triangle armbar. Decision. 114 round 3, neck crank from mount. 443 round 3, armbar. 416 round 3, ground and pound. 2 minutes, round 3, ground and pound. And then she lost in the second round here and won via armbar at 123 of the first round. So Kay Hansen, in her 7 wins, 5 of them have been in the third round. Let's look at that Kay Hansen third round prop, you guys, because, when I try to give you just the tip of the stats, it doesn't mean I can't go a little bit deeper if your Uncle Weezy has got your consent to go deeper. First of all, I need that. And second of all, if there are stats that when we go deeper, when we dig deeper, when we get lubricated and widen things up and get in a little bit deeper, are those stats interesting? Do they give us an angle over the bookies? Man, 5 out of 7 wins being in the third round, very interesting. Kay Hansen, round 3, plus 1,100. And she's a big favorite. And then we've got Kay Hansen by TKO in round 3, plus 2,000. And Kay Hansen by submission in round 3, plus 1,800. Very, very cheeky. I have to give you a big ring, a ding, ding for the first ever monetized episode of Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy. My guy, F. Carrillo, stepping in here with a super chat of $10. Ring a ding ding. Thank you so much for supporting the show, F. I appreciate it. You are always supporting all of our stuff on Pub Sports Radio. And he says, the man, the myth, the legend, Uncle Weezy. Jesus loves you, brother. Much love from Texas. Much love coming right back at you, brother, from the cold city streets of Chicago. We really appreciate you. Thank you for hanging out, man. It means a lot. And we also got my guy Jarno Portilla in here all the way from Finland, ladies and gentlemen, saying I could get under 2.5 at plus 220. I like that at plus 220. Kay Hansen absolutely finishes fights. She's finished 6 of her 7 wins inside the distance, you guys. And her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game as a 10th Planet brown belt is very, very good. She was swimming down there with Erin Blanchfield and submitting, or she was threatening with submissions in that fight as well. So if she can go 3 hard rounds with Erin Blanchfield, come out the other side, up a weight class, by the way, at 125, I do believe that she can absolutely destroy Jasmine Jasudavicius on the mat, who is brand new to grappling. Not to wrestling, but to grappling. So yeah, that is a really good look, man. I like that idea, Jarno. That's a really good one. And then and Tattooing Dream saying, yo, Weezy, you're monetized, you deserve it, bro. I truly appreciate that. Let's go, man. Let's go. So yeah, that is, I think we're about 4 fights in here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're getting there, you guys. We've got 9 more to go. We're only a half an hour in, so I am keeping a good pace for you this week. But like I said, I've broken down a couple of these fights in the past for you guys, so I'm ready. You know, I don't want to repeat myself too much here. But here we do have one that I have some things to say about. Tony Gravely versus Saimon Oliveira. All right, so we've got Tony Gravely 1 year younger here. He's going to be 1 inch taller, but it's Saimon Oliveira who's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. Tony Gravely, 28 professional fights, and Saimon is very experienced in his own right with 21 professional fights. If we look at the average fight time here, we see that Saimon at 6.6 minutes, Tony Gravely at almost 11 minutes. So it's Tony Gravely, even though he only has 7 more fights, has about 170 more minutes of professional cage time in comparison to Saimon. And he's also, but it's Saimon who's been a pro for 8.5 years, while for Tony Gravely, it's only been 6. And we talked about this on Stat Diggers, too. In a 6-year career, Tony Gravely has 28 fights. This guy fights. He's so active. He fights at a crazy pace. 4.5 fights per year as a pro. This guy is, he's the definition of lathered up and ready to go, man. This guy fights all the time. While Saimon, in an 8.5-year career, has fought 21 times. So he's been busy as well. Tony Gravely, 5 UFC level fights and about 40 more minutes in the UFC cage in comparison to Saimon Oliveira. Both of these guys, pretty good finishers, but it's Saimon Oliveira who's fought a lot of low-level regional scene competition. He's got an 89% finish rate in 18 wins. So 16 of those 18 wins have come inside the distance. So I think that would be 11 by submission and 5 by knockout. So yeah, Saimon Oliveira's got 11 submission wins. And if we look at Saimon and how he gets it done, you guys, you're going to see a lot of chokes, and you're going to see most of those chokes are coming by way of guillotine choke. So he is the kind of guy who, even when you back him up against the cage, sometimes he'll just jump up and try to get that arm over your head, and he'll start setting up that guillotine that he uses. So when we look here, we're going to see split decision win over Alday, front choke over Memura, guillotine over Batista, guillotine over Deco, guillotine over Jesus, guillotine over Duarte, punches over Piazza, guillotine over Santos, rear naked choke over Giovanni, triangle choke over Diego. And then there's a bunch of regional scene wins, most of which are finishes that he probably got some guillotines there too. So I think if we probably go to his Tapology page, we might be able to get a better idea of exactly how many guillotine chokes this guy does have on his record. So let's see. That's a guillotine arm triangle, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 guillotine chokes, 2 rear naked chokes, a triangle choke, and a front choke. So yeah, wow, this guy definitely gets the done. He is a strangulation expert, is Simon Oliveira. And then we've got, it's also important for us to note that Tony Gravely has been submitted 5 times in his 7 losses. 6 of his 7 losses have come inside the distance, and Gravely has a 57% finish rate. So yeah, he's probably finishing about 13 of those 21 wins inside the distance. I won't do the math in my head because that's just a little bit tricky. But we've got Tony Gravely in his UFC career landing 4.14 significant strikes a minute and only absorbing 3.27. Very impressive ratio. 54% striking accuracy. Excellent power for a bantamweight at 1.35%. Knockdowns for total significant strikes landed. That averages out to 0.84 knockdowns for 15 minutes. So Gravely definitely has power. He outvolumes his opponents. He has been knocked down once in 176 significant strikes absorbed in 5 fights, but striking defense is not good, you guys, at 46.34%. Simon Oliveira lands as much as he absorbs in the 1 fight that we have. 41% accuracy, 55% striking defense. What we saw out of the striking out of Simon in the Contender Series fight was that he's very wild. He throws with everything. This guy does try to wrestle. He does try to get the fight to the ground. That's really where he does his best work. When he's standing, he's just a little bit out over his toes. He's throwing everything into every punch. You can see him getting tired quickly the way he does strike, while Gravely kind of stays in the pocket. He keeps a really high guard. He throws in combination, and he does land hard. He does have a lot of power, you guys, for a bantamweight. And then he pairs that power with a really wrestling-heavy game plan that works very well for him. 41 takedown attempts for Tony Gravely in only 5 UFC fights. That's over 8 takedown attempts per fight. He's getting them at just about a 50% clip. 5.57 takedowns per 15 minutes for Gravely, and he's averaging almost 40% control time over a 5-fight sample size. His opponents have taken him down 9 times out of 18 attempts, so only 50% takedown defense for Gravely. But in those 53 minutes, he's only been controlled about 8 minutes, so less than a minute of control time per takedown that Gravely allows, while I would say he gets 21 minutes of control time on his 20 takedown attempts, so a little over a minute of control time per takedown for Tony Gravely. And he does attempt about a half submission per 15 minutes, while his opponents have been very busy with takedowns and submission attempts for 15 minutes. Simon Oliveira got 3 of the 7 takedowns he attempted on the Contender Series, averaging 3 takedowns for 15 minutes, and he outcontrolled his opponent 42% to 9%. So in that win for Oliveira, we saw a lot of the same things that we see out of Tony Gravely, using your wrestling to win minutes and bank rounds. They both do this very well. Simon probably a little more dangerous with his submissions and with those guillotine chokes. And Gravely is probably going to be the better wrestler here. The thing about Simon Oliveira, which I found interesting, was, we see him fighting Alday here at 135 pounds. But then when we go back before that, the Mimura fight was at 147 pounds. It was a catch weight in Pancrase, and Pancrase is always pulling all kinds of shenanigans. So I don't know if that fight was supposed to take place at 135 or what. But then when he has these 2 fights in Sicario MMA, he's fighting dudes at 165. Wesley Batista 7-2. This dude Deco de Oro was huge, 165 pounds. This guy Deco, how tall is he? 5'10". This guy, who's absolutely massive, and he was fighting against Simon here, who is not 5'10". He is 5'4". So he was just like, he was way smaller than this guy. So this guy has fought all over the place. At featherweight, he's fought at 165. And he's got a long career. But what we do see is that when he takes these steps up against Ari Farias, for instance, in ACB, that was his only fight in ACB. Farias. That fight was a bloodbath, by the way. If you just like Really good fights back and forth. That was a good one. But Ari Farias is a 6-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, and he wound up taking down this guy Oliveira and controlling him for large swaths of the fight. But even though Farias was successful in doing that and out-wrestled Saimon quite a bit, Saimon landed big shots, landed a big elbow at the end of the first that opened up Ari, and Ari was bleeding like a stuck pig for the rest of the fight. That fight was an absolute bloodbath. But Ari was getting takedowns and easily controlling Saimon once he got there. But even Ari, who's a 6-time, like I said, BJJ world champion, couldn't submit Saimon Oliveira. And we've never seen Saimon Oliveira ever be finished. While Tony Gravely only has a 50% finish rate as a pro, but he has finished 2 of his 3 UFC wins. So I think that Tony is better everywhere, you guys. He's good at wrestling, and he has the gas tank in order to push that pace for 3 full rounds. Saimon, we've seen kind of gas out late in fights. Personally, I have when I watch tape on him, and especially in that Ari Farias fight, he did not handle the wrestling well. And Tony's just much better in the pocket, and he's got a lot of power. So I do think Tony Gravely wins this fight, but I think that the best way to get a little value on this, because Tony's pretty expensive, is to take him by decision. Because Simon's never been stopped, and because Gravely has a below 60% finish rate as a pro, Tony Gravely by decision. Oh, wow. It's plus money. It's plus 100 on Bet Online, but you can get it 120, 140, and 158 on other books. So I'm going to wait to see where that opens. That might be the best way to play Gravely. But, both of these guys are very dangerous. I'm going to pick Tony Gravely to win this fight by decision. And if I could get something juicy for that Gravely by decision line, I'm going to take a long look at it. But yeah, Tony Gravely by decision, you guys. And we got my guy, Lou Betya, in the room. I owe Lou Betya a debt of gratitude. Before we had any super chats here on Uncle Weezy's channel, the first ever donation I got from a watcher was Lou Betya. Big ups, Lou Betya. Thanks for hanging out in here. And we got Jeremiah Nicola saying, I finally made it. How we feeling? We are feeling great. MMA Asphalt in the room saying, just the tip. Let's get it, Weezy. Thank you guys for hanging out. It is much, much, much appreciated. But yeah, that's Gravely versus Saimon Oliveira. That's going to be a damn good fight. And then here we got Michel Pereira versus Andre Fialho. We got 2 27-year-olds here. Andre Fialho is 6 feet tall, and Pereira is 6'1", and Fialho will have a 1-inch reach advantage here. Both of these guys, orthodox fighters. Fialho fighting out of Sanford MMA, and we've got Michel Pereira out of Scorpion Fighting Systems. And then let's see, we've got Michel Pereira, way more experienced here, 39 professional fights, while for Fialho, we have only 18, but that's still very experienced. I did not put Fialho's stats in here. I apologize, you guys. We've got this wrong, too. We don't have any UFC fights for Fialho, and he's going to be 0-0 and 0. And I'll get you the length of Fialho's career. He's been around for a minute, you guys. Let's see. Open up this worksheet here. I've got it down here somewhere, you guys. I will get you Fialho's length of pro career, but I'll just talk a little bit about what I've seen on tape from both of these guys. Pereira is obviously a very explosive striker, very long, very big for the welterweight division. And if he doesn't have too elaborate of a dance routine plan pre-fight, is very dangerous and can strike for 3 full rounds. We did see him get tired in the 3rd round against in that wait a second. Yeah, the Nico Price fight. Nico almost finished him, but Nico is one of those guys who pushes a pace for a very, very long time and never quits. So that wasn't surprising to see. But Michel Pereira accepted the Fialho as his opponent on short notice here. Fialho has a 7-year and 5-month career. So I'll just put that here. So you guys, this is going to be a striker versus striker matchup here, even though we've seen Pereira go to the grappling, which is very interesting. Pereira over his career has got a 65% finish rate. He's probably finished not 16 of his 26 wins inside the distance, while being finished only twice out of 11 losses. And I don't have the numbers here for Fialho. We do know that Pereira has done an excellent job with his striking as he lands about one more significant strike per minute than he absorbs. He's showing a really nice accuracy here at 56%. Decent power for the welterweight division at a 0.63% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, averaging 0.4 knockdowns per 15 minutes. He throws a little less volume than his opponents do, but he has really nice striking defense here, up at almost 60%. What's really nice about Pereira is in his 75 minutes in the UFC cage, he's gotten about 8 minutes of control time on 10 successful takedowns. So he's not really great at taking his opponents down and winning tons of minutes there, but it's not like this guy is losing a lot of minutes on the feet. So whenever things are close, he can use that wrestling in order to win 30-second stretches, 60-second stretches with his wrestling in close rounds, which has made him very dangerous in decisions. Fialho, we don't have any UFC statistics on him. He hasn't fought here yet. And Michel Pereira has been excellent, you guys, with his defensive grappling. 14 takedowns attempted against him. He stopped every single one of them. 100% takedown defense. And he is being controlled for just under 12% of his UFC cage time thus far, but he's stopped all the takedowns. So that is probably almost entirely up against the cage where he is being controlled. And then if we look at the type of competition that Pereira is facing, it's winning record guys with a 1.43 ratio and 9.33 total fights. The average record of a Michel Pereira opponent has 5.5 wins and 3.83 losses. And he's beating guys with winning records here, 3.75 and 2.25 with a 1.67 ratio. And he's losing also to guys with winning records, 9 wins, 7 losses, a 1.3 ratio. One of those losses is bullshit. It's the Diego Sanchez DQ, but Diego pulled a veteran move, and Pereira broke the rules, so he lost that. Now, Fialho, I've never even seen Fialho, I don't think, attempt a takedown, if I'm not mistaken. This guy prefers to keep the fight on the feet, and he kind of has to because he has pathetic conditioning. He has some of the worst conditioning that I've ever seen in my entire life. Even in slow-paced fights, he will be completely out of breath halfway through the second round. And if there's any pace to the fight, if there's any grappling to the fight, you'll see him with his mouth wide open, gasping for air at the end of the first. So Fialho is very dangerous early in fights. He throws his hands way more than his feet. He throws in combination, and he lands hard. So a lot of power here, but we have seen excellent range management, movement, athleticism, and striking defense thus far out of Pereira. I think he's going to be the better, flashier striker, landing the bigger shots here, and I think he'll be able to win some minutes on the ground with his wrestling as well. We do know that Pereira has attempted 16 takedowns in only 6 fights, so he's getting 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. So I do like his ability to be able to win some minutes on the ground here. I think he's fought the better brand of competition, even though Fialho, over his regional scene competition, has faced some really good names, some names that you would absolutely recognize. So I'll take you through it here real quick. Where is this fight? See, they got it all messed up on Tapology here. All right, so we got Fialho, and we see the wins over Sekulic and Vic right here and here. This loss to Antonio Dos Santos Jr. is some of the worst display of conditioning that I've ever seen in any fight. Dos Santos was exhausted in the second, but he had a resurgence in the third and beat the shit out of him. Glyco Franca, this was a win for Franca, but Franca must have pissed hot for something because it was overturned. He lost in round 3 to the action man, Chris Curtis. He's also lost to Chidi Njokuani. So we do see that when he steps up and faces UFC level competition, Glyco Franca, Chris Curtis, Chidi Njokuane. And there might even be, nobody before that. So he's got some wins over some guys that, Manny Merez, 7-1, Rick Rieger, 7-1, AJ Matthews, we've seen fight in Bellator, 8-6, Javier Torres, 10-4. And then he beat James Vick, in ex-MMA on the regional scene after Vick already left the UFC. And he beat Sekulic, who's fresh off of a UFC performance where he almost won a fight. But he won that one with a short elbow here at 2 minutes left in the first. So, yeah, Fialho is very dangerous, but he's dangerous for about 6 or 7 minutes, while Pereira has shown great conditioning when he doesn't have elaborate dance routines, when he's not doing backflips to start fights and fucking break dancing like he's in Electric Boogaloo. So we gotta assume that Pereira is going to stop making those kind of mistakes, not do stupid shit before the fight, so that he can carry the kind of pace that he needs to push here. Fialho is a death gasser, so I will be looking at and almost definitely betting a third round prop on Michel Pereira here because Fialho's conditioning is absolutely god awful. And we can find Pereira by round 3 at plus 1,000 on DraftKings and on BetOnline. I'm going to be sprinkling that for maybe a quarter unit or maybe a tenth of a unit just to have a little action on this fight. I do think Michel Pereira should handle Fialho fairly easily. I think he'll be defensively responsible enough here and even land enough of his own big shots in order to survive the first. And if you survive the first of Fialho, chances are he's not getting you out of there because it's like I said, his conditioning is terrible. I mean, we got a win here in the second round against James Vick. That's a decision. He's got a couple of decision wins, but they're majority and split. So he obviously fades late in fights. I mean, most of his wins are round 1. And you'd have to go back to the Portugal regional scene here against these guys that I've never heard of, where we can see, maybe he was getting some decision wins. But for the most part, this guy's getting knockouts early in fights. And if he doesn't get that, he gasses out. So the pick is going to be Michel Pereira by third round knockout for this one, you guys. Let's go to Matt the Steamroller Frevola against Gennaro Valdez. So we've got Valdez is 2 years younger. Both of these guys are 5'9", and Valdez is going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. We got Frevola fighting out of Gracie, Tampa South with Billy Q and the boys, and Gennaro Valdez start fighting out of Entrim Gym. I do remember that Frevola, when he first came into the UFC, was fighting he had Ray Longo in his corner. But now I guess he's over at Gracie, Tampa South. Frevola's got 2 more professional fights and about 65 more minutes of cage time than Gennaro Valdez. Gennaro Valdez's average fight time is only 4.1 minutes. The guy is an absolute finisher. All 10 wins inside the distance. While Matt Frevola has an 8.83 minute average fight time, he's been doing this about a year or longer. So it's Frevola who's got a little bit of an experience advantage here, while the tail of the tape is slightly in favor of Valdez being 2 years younger and having a 1-inch reach advantage. And then Frevola 6 more fights at the UFC level in about 60 more minutes in the UFC cage. We mentioned Valdez, 30% by sub, 70% by knockout, all 10 wins inside the distance. And Frevola, a 51% finish, we're all 50% finish rate. He's got 3 wins by submission and 1 by knockout and 4 by decision. In Frevola's 3 losses, he's been knocked out twice and decisioned once. So Frevola absorbs a lot more than he lands, about 0.75 significant strikes more. He's showing a 37% striking accuracy and has landed 1 knockdown in 7 UFC fights for 0.22 knockdown for 15 minutes. And he's been knocked down 5 times in 7 fights. So Matt Frevola is very chinny. And we do see that Gennaro Valdez in his 1 UFC fight does have a knockdown against Patrick White. That fight was awesome. If you haven't seen Gennaro Valdez versus Patrick White Contender Series fight, check that out as soon as you're done watching Just the Tip. But please watch Just the Tip until the end. Gennaro Valdez looked awesome in that fight, but so did Patrick White, and it was an absolute war for about as long as it lasted, which was about 6.5 minutes. Spectacular stuff. But yeah, Valdez put on a pace here. He threw 16 significant strike attempts per minute, but Patrick White threw 20 significant strike attempts per minute. So you could see it was an absolute war. Valdez did not show great striking defense, but he did show some power here. Got 4 takedowns in 1 round against Patrick White. So Valdez will go to the wrestling early and often here, but so will Frevola, as we see that he's attempting about 4.5 takedown attempts per fight and getting his takedowns at a 37.5% clip over a 7-fight sample size in the UFC, while for Gennaro Valdez, it's just 1 fight at the Contender Series level against an Alaska FC guy. So, but when you watch the regional scene tape on Valdez, you will see that this guy gets takedowns a lot. He can absolutely swim on the ground. He had a great fight with Hilario Portales on the regional scene, where we got to really kind of see, it was this fight right here. He won this fight by knockout in the 3rd round, got Portales' back and pounded him out. But that fight was a great back and forth fight, and I think it's the best fight to watch if you want to get an idea for what you're getting if you're betting on Gennaro Valdez. We do know that Frevola is facing winning fighters here with a 1.2 ratio, 4.71 total fights, and he's beating guys with winning records, an average of 3 wins and 1.33 losses for a 2.25 ratio. So he's actually beating better guys than what he loses to. The guys that he loses to have losing records, a 0.83 ratio, and less fights. So it's kind of interesting. Frevola seems to beat the better guys and lose to the worst guys. But yeah, we can see the last 5 here. Lost by knockout to Terrence McKinney. Lost by unanimous decision to Arman Sarukian. A win by split over Luis Pena. A win unanimous over Jalen Tarantula Turner. And a draw with Lando Venata. So it's obviously a huge step up in competition here that this guy is making. Gennaro Valdez's last 5 fights were against Patrick White, Edric Guzman, Miguel Arizmendi, Alan Bautista, and Hilario Portales. Portales probably the most talented of the 5 fighters that he's fought in his last 5 fights. So Frevola is not very responsible defensively. He is kind of chinny. I think that this is going to be a war as long as it lasts. Even though Frevola doesn't have a great finish rate, he has been finished in 2 out of his 3 losses. And I don't even think Gennaro Valdez has ever even seen a 3rd round. Let's go through his Tapology background to see what we might think of an over-under bet here, you guys. So Frevola, we wanted to go to Valdez and see if he's ever been out of the 2nd round. So Gennaro Valdez, win over White in the 2nd. Round 1, round 1, round 1. Round 3 against Hilario Portales. Round 2, round 1. And then, yeah, the fights against Vaca, Lopez, and Martinez, I don't know where those went. But, yeah, he has been into the 3rd round once, and he did get the win using his wrestling there in the 3rd round to get a dominant position and then pound out Portales after mounting him. So, yeah, this guy is good. I mean, he trains at Entrim Gym, so he's got some really good training partners. There are 4 guys from Entrim Gym who are on this card. It is going to be Valdez, Morales in the next fight, the champion Brandon Moreno, and then Silvana Gomez Juarez. So they're definitely a gym that's peaking right now because they're going to be putting 4 people into this pay-per-view card. So this appears to be a very close fight, but the bookies don't have it lined that way. They've got Frevola at about a -175, -190 favorite, depending on where you bet it. So they got him sitting around a 63, 64% implied probability. Gennaro Valdez has very, very similar skill set, in my opinion, to Matt Frevola. What he doesn't have is the experience that Frevola has and the strength of schedule that Frevola has. While both of these guys wrestle well and both of these guys are good on the ground, both of these guys have serviceable striking. I do believe that Frevola's experience and the fact that he's been in there with much better competition and he's done this before, he's much less likely to get the jitters or have an adrenaline dump. I think as long as Frevola has a good weight cut here, that he will get this one done and maybe even get it done in the 3rd round. I do see whoever wins this fight probably finishing. The fight doesn't go to decision is at minus 120. So I guess they're saying that's about, this fight finishes about 55% of the time almost. And this is a lightweight fight when they finish on the aggregate about 50% of the time. So with guys like Valdez, who's a 100% finisher, and Frevola, who's been finished inside the distance a couple of times, I think it's not a bad look there. Fight doesn't go to decision at minus 120. But I think this is going to be a close fight. I would be very hesitant to lay minus 175 on Matt Frevola here. And I could even say that there's some value on Gennaro Valdez as a dog here at plus 165. I think that this is going to be a high-scoring fight for DraftKings here. And I think that this is going to be a very exciting, potentially fight of the night fight between Gennaro Valdez and Matt Frevola. I'm going to pick Matt Frevola here to win, I guess, a greasy decision, but I don't really have a handle on whether this fight's going to finish or not. And frankly, the bookies don't either if they're sitting at a minus 120 for fight doesn't go. So, you guys, let's leave it there for that one and move on to this one. We've got Trevin Giles against Michael Morales. Michael Morales, 6 years younger here, and he's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. Trevin Giles is cutting down to welterweight for the first time in his career. So before we get into any of the other stats, we have to mention that, you're going to want to see Trevin on the scales before you bet him, because if he has a really lousy weight cut here, I think this guy Morales is going to drown him. We've got 17 professional fights for Trevin Giles, 12 for Michael Morales, 14-3 for Giles, 12-0 for Morales. About twice as much cage time for Trevin Giles here, about a 70-minute advantage. Both of these guys' average fight time is below 10 minutes. And we got about a 3-year experience advantage for Trevin Giles as a pro, and 7 more fights at the UFC level. And even Trevin Giles' regional scene competition was against really good fighters. We'll go over that real quick here, and then we'll look at Morales' strength of schedule as well. So Trevin Giles here, even before he went to the UFC, was fighting guys like Brendan Allen. Let's see here. So it was the Bochniak fight. He had Ryan Spann, Ike Villanueva, Brendan Allen. So he's definitely had some guys on that resume here. He's been fighting tough guys since almost day one. Definitely finishes fights. A win against Josh Clark as well. And then he got into the UFC, beat the shit out of James Bachnovic, beat Braganetto, lost to Cummins and Mearshart, beat Kraus by split decision, big win over Bevon Lewis, unanimous decision win over the lusty Roman Dolidze, and then he got knocked out by Dricus du Plessis. And let's see here, you guys. Michael Morales only one UFC fight, and that was a Contender Series fight. That fight was against Nikolai Veretennikov. Veretennikov from Kazakhstan originally. He's training here in the States. And then we look, before that, he's got a win over Arismendi, and I believe Arismendi also fought Gennaro Valdez, right? Yeah, Gennaro Valdez. This is a guy who's lost 3, 4, 5, 6 of his last 7 fights. Arismendi, not really. He's the best guy on his record, other than the Contender Series fight. So Morales has not even fought close to the same level of competition that Trevin Giles has here. So if we look at the finish rates for these guys, we've got an 83% finish rate for Morales. We've got a 79% finish rate for Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles has been finished in all 3 of his losses. We've got a 54% striking accuracy here for Trevin Giles. He lands 3.14 significant strike attempts per minute, or significant strikes per minute, and only absorbs 2.01. So when Trevin's on the feet, he's doing very well. Showing decent power, too, at 1% knockdowns for total significant strikes landed. That's 0.48 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And he's showing 61% striking defense, but he's also getting knocked down over 1% of the significant strikes that he absorbs, and that is averaging out to 0.32 knockdowns for 15 minutes. Morales landed a little more strikes than he absorbed, showed a pathetic 34% striking defense in that fight. That is not going to be good against Giles. Giles should be able to pick him apart from the outside if Morales doesn't shore up that striking defense. And let's see, Michael Morales got 4 of his 8 takedowns. Trevin Giles, in his 8 UFC fights, has only attempted 10 takedowns. He's gotten 8 of them. He's controlling his opponents 19.53% of the time and being controlled 22% of the time. So it's about over 40% of Trevin Giles' fights are taking place in control time positions, and it's about 44% for Morales. It's just that Giles has been pretty, I would say that he's been very efficient. He's getting takedown attempted 2.8 to 1 by his opponents, but he's barely being out controlled by his opponents. So 75% takedown defense and 80% takedown accuracy shows that Trevin is good defensively and very efficient offensively when he's going for takedowns. That's going to be very important in this one. But Michael Morales has got a high-level wrestling background. So this kid, when you watch the tape on Morales, right, all the regional scene footage that's available on the tape index shows this guy doing nothing but striking, right? He just strikes. He bounces around. He doesn't pressure that much. He doesn't back up that much. Not terribly high volume, but very accurate, very powerful. He's got a huge frame for 170 pounds, especially at his age. I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to make this weight class because he's only 22. I got a feeling once he's 26, 27, his days of being able to cut down to 170 are going to be behind him. But Trevin Giles, who's been a middleweight for his entire career in the UFC, and I think has even taken one fight at 205 pounds in the UFC. I think either the Braganetto or the Boknovic fight was at 205. So it's crazy that this guy's coming down a weight class, and he's going to be by far the smaller person here with a 5-inch reach disadvantage. So Trevin Giles is going to have to use that jab early and often. It is a very, very good jab, but he barely throws it. The problem, there's a lot of problems with Giles. Number one, he's very low output. Number two, he makes horrible decisions in the cage. He grapples with guys that he shouldn't grapple with. One of his best strengths, in my opinion, is his ground and pound. He's got excellent ground and pound. You see him finishing fights before he got into the UFC with his ground and pound, and also the Boknovic fight was a ground and pound clinic. His ground and pound is something that I think he has so much faith in that he'll actually grapple with guys that he shouldn't be grappling with, trying to get into a dominant position and then using that GNP to finish the fight. But I think he makes bad decisions trying to get into positions where he can use that ground and pound. Trevin doesn't use his jab nearly enough. And like I say, he puts himself in bad spots. He'll fight his opponent's game rather than fighting his own game. He doesn't even seem to come into fights with a game plan at all, to be honest with you. I just don't see a lot of process to the way that Trevin Giles goes about his business. On the other hand, Morales, while I didn't see a lot of diversity from him outside of the UFC, when he came into the UFC, he started to show that wrestling game that, they were saying that this guy was training with the Ecuadorian national wrestling team and that, he's got all this wrestling. And when I heard that, I'm like, bullshit, he never used it, not once. But then when you watch the Contender Series fight, that's when you see Morales use the wrestling against Veretennikov, and he has a ton of success doing it. And he even said during the post-fight interview, and I'm talking about Morales here, that wrestling wasn't in the game plan for him, but that when he was starting to lose some of those striking exchanges with Veretennikov, he just changed his mind and decided, I'm going to go to the wrestling. And Michael Morales' mother, I believe, is a very, very high-level judo competitor, and she might even still be competing. So I think Morales has a high-level wrestling background, a high-level judo background, and he's really good on the feet, and he hits with a lot of power. Michael Morales has finished 75% of his 12 wins by knockout. So this guy is very good. He's got very heavy hands. This is a tough one, you guys, because Trevin Giles theoretically is 28 years old. He's fought really good competition in 17 professional fights in 150 minutes of cage time. He's got great ground and pound. He's got a great jab. If he could just stop making dumbass decisions in the cage, he's a guy that, should be able to win a lot of fights and really be a problem. And if he can make 170, he's going to be a problem down here, especially when he gets on top of dudes. The thing is, though, and this, Dana White said this after he saw Morales fight. He said, I believe this kid can be special. And at only 22 years old, to have things that he is clearly very good at that he's just keeping in his back pocket, and having the ability to know when to use your wrestling, to be able to gauge mid-fight that, all right, the game plan that I came in with, it isn't working, so now I'm going to wrestle. And then he gets 4 takedowns and manages 36.67% control time against Veretennikov to win the fight comfortably. This was a very impressive, very heady performance by a 22-year-old young man who has very good high-level experience with very important martial arts like wrestling, like judo, and like boxing right now. So when I see a guy who's already making good decisions in the cage, who's going to be 6 years younger, have a 5-inch reach advantage, and just be in much better shape, and we don't have to worry about, is Trevin Giles going to gas because he has a horrible weight cut, cutting for the first time from 185 down to 170. The problem is that this is a huge step up in competition for him, but it's really only a step up in competition if Trevin Giles makes good decisions in the cage. And I can't count on Trevin Giles to do that. So I'm going to go with the underdog here, you guys. I'm going to pick Michael Morales. From what I saw from this guy on tape, he's got way more ways to do damage here than Trevin Giles does. And I think that his wrestling is incredibly legit. And I think that he's going to be a real problem here for Trevin. And if we have any kind of problems with Trevin in the weight cut, I think Michael Morales is going to make this look fairly easy. And this is a straight up fight IQ pick, you guys. It's a fight IQ pick. I love the fact that Giles has faced a much tougher competition and has been in there with guys that are way better than Michael Morales at this point. He hasn't beaten them, but this is still a spot where I think that this kid Morales can really open some eyes on Saturday here and beat Trevin Giles, a veteran of the UFC, a guy with 8 UFC fights, and a guy who has some really good names on his resume, even pre-UFC. So I'm going to pick Michael Morales, and I'm going to pick him to win by 3rd round knockout. Next fight, and I believe this is going to start the main card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. We are going with Cody Stamann and Said Nurmagomedov. Now, I'm going to be doing a balls deep breakdown on this fight, 10 o'clock Central Time tomorrow night, because I think it's a very intriguing striker versus grappler matchup here. The grappler is Stamann. The striker is Said Nurmagomedov. Cody Stamann's going to be 3 years older here than Said. Said's going to be 2 inches taller and have a 6-inch reach advantage. Both of these guys, orthodox fighters. Said out of Akhmat, Cody Stamann out of Michigan, top team, and it's Russia for Said and USA for Cody Stamann, excuse me. All right, sorry, I'm back, you guys. Cody Stamann with 8 more professional fights here. He's got a 19-4 record to 14-2 for Said. Twice as much time in the cage, and an average fight time a lot longer than Said here. The length of pro career, don't have it in front of me, you guys, but I can get it for you. Let's see where Stamann and Nurmagomedov are. But Stamann, you guys, I call this a striker versus grappler matchup because Said is very good with his striking. He throws a ton of spinning stuff. He's very large, and he uses his length very well. He uses a lot of techniques that make it difficult to get inside on him, constantly throwing spinning kicks to the body. That's how he knocked out Mark Striegel, and I believe that's how he knocked out Ricardo Ramos as well, just getting into that body and finishing on them as soon as he lands to the body. So Said has shown pretty good takedown defense here in the UFC thus far at over 71%. The only guy who was able to control him at all was Hani Barcelos. That's his only loss. In the other 3 wins, you see that his opponents have gotten 0 seconds of control time, 0 seconds of control time, and 0 seconds of control time. And Striegel and Ramos are both grapplers. So the fact that those guys can manage 0 seconds of control time against Saeed shows how difficult it is to control this guy. And the control time, the 159 seconds of control time that Barcelos mentioned, or that he got, which I should mention is only 15% of the fight, was he actually had him standing for a half, where his both hands were down and both feet were down, and he was just kind of riding his back, not doing much. But he caught a kick in the third, did Barcelos, and take Saeed down. So Saeed is very, very difficult to take down. I just want to mention that, and then I want to get the length of career on the spreadsheet for you guys here for it's 10 years, 1 month, 9 days. So 10 years, 1 month, 9 days. There we go. So, yeah, it's Saeed who's more experienced here, but it's Cody who's got a lot more cage time and 8 more professional fights. And he's got 5 more fights at the UFC level, does Cody Stamann, and almost 100 more minutes in the UFC cage. So, Cody Stamann with the experience advantage, Saeed Nurmagomedov with the big tail of the tape advantage here. When we look at how these guys finish, both of these guys, not much in terms of finishing. 50% for Nurmagomedov in 14 wins, and 43% for Stamann in 19 wins. So that's one of the 43% for a career is very, very low for any men's division. And then in these guys, 6 combined losses, only one of them has been finished inside the distance. It was Cody Stamann being subbed. So striking stats that we see here, you guys, Cody Stamann looking pretty good here, landing about 0.7 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs. Almost 47% striking accuracy and 63% striking defense, while we've got Saeed Nurmagomedov even more impressive, landing 4.65 and only absorbing 2.37. So he's about doubling up his opponents in terms of significant strikes differential per minute. Both of these guys striking accuracy almost the same. Saeed does have 1 knockdown in his 4 UFC fights, and neither one of these guys has ever been knocked down. And both of these guys' striking defense is north of 60%. Very good. They're both very responsible defensively. We see Saeed has attempted 13 takedowns in 4 fights, but he's only gotten 1 of them. Saeed isn't known for his wrestling. He's known for his striking. But at the same time, because he's so long and because he does have a really good grappling background to go along with the striking, he's very tricky to take down and hold down. And because of those long limbs, he can threaten with submissions or find a base when you're trying for single legs. He's really good with his balance. So, and he's going to have to be, because the thing here is that Cody Stamann, with 54 takedown attempts in 9 fights, is very committed to the wrestling. And he brings the kind of gas tank that you need in order to drive that pace and drive it successfully. So Cody Stamann, 54 takedown attempts. He's gotten 24 of them, 44.44% takedown accuracy, 2.8 takedowns for 15 minutes, and he's averaging just under 23% control time. So in 128 minutes, that would be about 28 minutes of control time on 24 takedowns. So he gets a little over a minute of control time per takedown. And he's showing 75% takedown defense in his own right, and his opponents are only controlling him 11% of his UFC career. So about 14 minutes on 13 takedowns. So he's been pretty efficient. His opponents try as many takedowns as he does, but he's out controlling his opponents at better than a 2-to-1 ratio. So Cody's wrestling efficiency has been good. And Saeed, for a striker, we see some numbers that we'd like to see here. For instance, his fights are taking place in control time positions just north of 15% of the time. So Saeed, who's a great striker, 85% of his fights are taking place in striking range. That's the crux of this matchup, you guys. Who's going to be successful here? Because you know Cody's going to be trying takedowns. He's a really good boxer. He's a crisp boxer, but he's at a 5-inch reach disadvantage here. And Nurmagomedov controls range very well and uses a lot of weapons that allow him to be able to control and maintain that range. So I think as long as this fight is on the feet, Said Nurmagomedov is going to be at a big advantage. And I do think that this fight will hit the ground. I do think that Cody's going to make it really dirty. But the thing is, I'd like to see this control time number be around 40 or 50% for me to think that Cody Stamann's going to win enough minutes on the ground in order to have a chance to win this fight. So let's look at control time numbers. Okay, so we got to go down some here. And we're going to look at the control time numbers here for Cody Stamann and kind of link it up with his wins and see what he's doing when he's winning and what he's losing. So the Kelleher fight is a win. The Alejandro Turbo Perez fight is a win. Song Yadong is a draw, so I'll highlight that as well. And we got Caraway, Duquesnoy, and Terrion Ware. So he's 5-1 in these fights. And we see control time out of 900, 108, 396, 82, 0, 169, and 410. So in these 6 fights where he's 5-1, he's only been out-controlled once, and it was by a pure grappler in Caraway where Stamann was the better striker. And then if we look here, we see that when he's losing fights to guys like Davalishvili, Rivera, and Aljamain Sterling, that the control time numbers are pretty close. He gets out-controlled by Sterling, he out-controls Rivera, and he out-controls Davalishvili, but those guys, 48 and 26, land 71 and 48 strikes. So when he was landing 48, he got outlanded 71 to 48. Here he got outlanded 48 to 26, and against Aljamain, he got outlanded 33 to 12. So these guys that he's losing to, Sterling and Davalishvili in particular, are excellent grapplers, while Jimmy Rivera is a pure boxer. And then these guys that he beat or tied are grapplers here, like Kelleher, a hybrid. Yadong, more of a boxer. Perez, hybrid. Caraway, pure grappler. Duquesnoy, power striker. Terrion Ware, wrestler. So it was really the best, wrestler grapplers that beat him in Sterling and Davalishvili. And Said Nurmagomedov, really a lot more of a striker. This is something of a unique matchup. We haven't really seen him fight a fantastic striker yet. Song Yadong would probably be the best striker that he's faced thus far. So it's a very interesting stylistic matchup. Let's look at the strength of schedule numbers here. And we did hear Bootsy barking, which is interesting because we didn't hear Bootsy barking at all during Stat Diggers, which means that a bunch of favorites might win. But both of these guys have been fighting good competition. The strength of schedule advantage on the overall, a slight edge to Stamann, 2.18 to 2 for ratio, 7.77 to 5.25 for total fights, and a little bit better in the wins here for Stamann, and a little bit better in the losses here for Stamann as he's fighting twice as experienced competition. Said lost to Barcelos, while we've seen Cody Stamann lose to Marab, Jimmy Rivera, and the current champion, Aljamain Sterling. So, yeah, strength of schedule advantage here for Stamann, a wrestling advantage here and grappling advantage here for Stamann, but a big-time striking advantage, a big-time tail of the tape advantage for Said Nurmagomedov. And what I like about Nurmagomedov, in addition to the 71% takedown defense, is the fact that he's only been controlled 8% of his UFC career. That number is going to have to go way up if we're going to see Cody Stamann win minutes and potentially win this fight. So the pick, you guys, is going to be Said Nurmagomedov by decision. And then we go on to this fight. And just before I went live here, I had to watch it. I had to rewatch Rodolfo Vieira versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez and check out the worst death gas that I've seen ever. No, Vieira's was worse. I mean, one of the worst death gases that I had just seen was absolutely Andre Fialho against Anderson Dos something. It's not Dos Santos, it's another Dos, but he absolutely just completely gassed at the end of the first. And then he got taken down in the third, and he put his arms flat on the mat like this and just let his guy lay on top of him. I've never seen anything like it in my life. But yeah, death gassing Rodolfo Vieira, 6 years older than Wellington Turman. Both of these guys are 6 feet tall. Vieira with a 1-inch reach advantage. Vieira training out of Fusion Excel, and a Wellington out of the Giles Ribeiro team. Both of these guys Brazilian. It's Wellington Turman with a MMA experience advantage here, with 13 more professional fights, 110 more minutes in the pro cage, and about 3.5 more years as a pro mixed martial artist. And he has 1 more fight at the UFC level and about 22 more minutes in the UFC cage. Wellington Turman finishing fights at a 65% rate. Rodolfo Vieira and his 8 wins finishing at a 100% rate. And Vieira has been finished in his only loss, while Turman has been finished in 2 out of his 5 losses. So 3 out of these guys' 6 losses combined have come inside the distance. And let's see, 65%. So 11 of Turman's 17 wins. So 19 of 25 wins coming inside the distance. So I would say there's a pretty good probability, over 50%, that this fight finishes inside the distance. We see that Rodolfo Vieira lands 2.6 significant strikes a minute and absorbs 4, while Turman also gets outlanded 3.04 to 3.96. Turman showing a 43.5% striking defense. Both of these guys are not good on the feet. Neither one of these guys are great strikers. Vieira and Turman both rely on their grappling in order to win. Vieira has done a really nice job of out-controlling his opponents, 43% to 5%, while Turman is out-controlling his opponents, 36% to 22%. But even though Turman has never been taken down, he's still been managed to be controlled 22% of the time because he sells out to get his fights on the ground so often. So this is interesting. It's a fight I have no action on. When we look at strength of schedule here, you guys, it's Turman who's fought the better competition by far, but they're both fighting guys with losing records. It's just Turman's fighting much more experienced guys on the aggregate and beating better guys on the aggregate. So Turman has got the tail of the tape advantage because he's younger. He's got the experience advantage. He's actually got the striking advantage simply because Rodolfo Vieira's striking is so stiff and so bad. And at least Turman has won a striking-based decision in the UFC against Sam Alvey. Vieira, absolutely god-awful gas tank, but we saw huge improvements from Rodolfo Vieira in the last fight against Dustin Stoltzfus. He fought a smart game plan. He didn't sell out for the grappling from second number 1. He wasn't constantly trying to finish the fight. He managed his energy well. He saved his grappling for the second half of the fight and was able to get his takedowns when he shot for them and was able to work for submissions and finish the fight on the ground once he got the fight there. So Rodolfo Vieira really did show a lot of improvement in his last outing, but you cannot forget the outings that came before that, knowing that if he hadn't finished those fights when he did, that he would have been completely gassed and probably unable to continue in the Pechota fight. In the Saperbeg-Safarov fight was the only fight where he absolutely just dominated from pillar to post. But Hernandez, he had big success early in that one. Even Pechota had a little bit of success in that fight. But in the second round, it looked like he was getting really tired, but then he got Pechota down to the ground and got an arm triangle. So both of these guys are good at out-controlling their opponents. It's just Vieira's done a much better job of it. 43% control time, but only 5% control time allowed. So, I think Turman does have a striking advantage here. I think he's faced the better brand of competition. He's younger, and he's got a much better gas tank. But Vieira might be that much better on the ground. And since such a huge percentage of this fight should be taking place on the ground, I think it's going to be Rodolfo Vieira winning this fight. But there's no way I'd bet it at this line. And I do think that there's actually probably some value here on the Wellington Turman money line at plus 200, because if Vieira doesn't get this fight done early, and if Wellington Turman pushes a pace on Vieira that he can't handle, one thing that I think would be a great bet is a Turman round 3 bet for this one, you guys. Turman in round 3 is plus 2,000, and he is facing a guy who has absolutely death-gassed in there before. Just because he manages energy well against Stoltzfus, it doesn't mean that Turman's not going to go out there and push a much heavier pace than Stoltzfus pushed against Vieira. And don't forget, as credentialed, as legendary as Rodolfo Vieira's BJJ game is, Wellington Turman, that is his base, and he might not be afraid to grapple with Rodolfo. So if he pushes a pace, if he makes Rodolfo fight and be desperate early, he could potentially gas him out and get a late finish here via strikes or via submission. So I do think Vieira does win this fight, you guys. I don't think that Turman is way better anywhere where this fight is going to take place in long stretches. So I do want to pick Rodolfo Vieira, but I think I will be sprinkling Wellington Turman plus 2,000 to win in round 3. That is a very, very fat prop there, and there's absolutely a method to that madness because we've seen the deplorable conditioning from Vieira in the past, and if Turman does push a pace, we could see him get a finish late. So I'm going to pick Rodolfo Vieira to win this fight, but I'm going to bet Wellington Turman to win at round 3 at plus 2,000. That way I only have to sprinkle maybe 1/10 of a unit to win 2. So that's my favorite bet for this fight, but the pick will be Rodolfo Vieira by decision, you guys. And we're going to move on here to a fight. I got some interesting stats for you guys in Charles Jourdain versus Ilia Topuria. Topuria still only 24 years old. Jourdain still only 26. 2 inches of height for Jourdain, 69-inch reach for both of these guys. Charles switches stances while Ilia fights out of the orthodox. Charles Jourdain out of Academy Pro Star, while Ilia Topuria trains Clement Club in Europe and MMA Masters in the United States. Out of the country of Georgia is Topuria, while we got Charles Jourdain, one of our neighbors to the north. 6 more professional fights for Jourdain, about 140 more minutes in the pro cage for Jourdain, and about a 1 year more career for Topuria. So it's been Jourdain who's been very, very active, fighting more than 3 times a year. Excuse me. Thank you. Okay, you guys. So Jourdain's 4 more fights at the UFC level, about 70 more minutes in the UFC cage. Topuria has finished 91% of his 11 wins inside the distance, and Charles Jourdain has finished 92% of his 12 wins inside the distance. 21 of 23 of these guys' combined wins have come inside the distance. Both of these guys are savage finishers, but Jourdain has only been finished in 1 out of 4 pro losses, and Ilia Topuria has never even lost a professional fight, much less been finished. If we look at the striking stats here, we're going to see some really nice numbers out of Jourdain. 49.16% striking accuracy, 60% striking defense, a positive 1.13 significant strike differential, landing a knockdown on over 1% of the total significant strikes that he lands, and he's been knocked down twice in 7 fights, but he's gotten 6 knockdowns in 7 fights, so very powerful. And then Topuria has landed 1 knockdown in 62 significant strikes. That's coming out to 1.61% knockdowns for total significant strikes landed, a 48.5% striking accuracy, 0.67 knockdowns for 15 minutes. And he's only absorbing 1.92 significant strikes a minute and showing almost 65% striking defense. So Jourdain is going to be the better striker here, but Ilia, for somebody who's known for his grappling, does have what I wouldn't even call it serviceable striking. It's better than serviceable. He throws with power. He finds people's chins. If you want to see a really great Ilia Topuria knockout on the regional scene, go back to his Brave fight against Steven Goncalves. That was a great knockout, right on the chin. Slept that dude. It took him a couple of minutes to wake up. That was the first time that we saw Topuria as a pro really show off the striking. And I think that was what got him noticed as more than just a grappler when he was there in Brave and got him the call up. So both of these guys putting up really good striking numbers. However, it's obviously Jourdain throwing a lot more volume, but that's because Topuria's fights are taking place on the ground quite a bit. And one of his fights was against Ryan Hall, which was very low volume because Ryan Hall has a very strange fight style that, you guys, that it's just difficult to deal with that dude. So you're not going to see people throwing a lot of volume against him. Charles does not attempt takedowns. Ilya does. So this fight is a striker versus grappler. If Charles can keep this fight standing for 3 rounds, he's got a great chance to win it. That's probably not going to happen, though, because Charles Jourdain has been taken down 13 times out of 25 attempts. He's shown sub 50% takedown defense. He's getting taken down more than 2 times for 15 minutes and being controlled 11.36% of his UFC career. But then again, it's not that bad because 79% of his fights are taking place at striking range. And if he can keep this fight at striking range for 80% of the time, he'll probably have a lot of success. But Topuria doesn't need long on the ground, you guys. He finishes with a bunch of different submissions. He's not a one-trick pony. The guy is extremely good everywhere. He's gotten 5 of his 9 UFC takedowns. He's averaging 3.35 takedowns for 15 minutes and 3.35 submission attempts for 15 minutes. And he's controlling his opponents 42% of the time, while only being controlled 13% of the time and showing 100% takedown defense. So I do think that Ilya Topuria is going to be able to choose where this fight takes place, and that's going to be very important. When we look at the strength of schedule, Ilya Topuria's ratio way better, but Charles Jourdain fighting the more experienced competition. And when we look at the wins, it's better for Topuria. We see that Topuria's wins are over Ryan Hall, Damon Jackson, and Yusuf Zalal, while Charles Jourdain has fought Andre Ewell, beat him. He lost to Julian Erosa via sub, beat Marcelo Rojo, had a draw with Josh Kulabau, and lost via split decision to Andre Philly. Great fight, by the way. But there are some stats that I want to highlight for you guys about Charles Jourdain and just how he wins and loses fights. I think I've got him up here. There's Turman and Vieira, and there's Jourdain. So let's look at the wins. Andre Ewell, Marcelo Rojo, and Doo Ho Choi. In those fights, he was controlled less than 100 seconds. 35 seconds by Andre Ewell, 28 seconds by Marcelo Rojo, and 68 seconds by Doo Ho Choi. And in those 3 fights, he was taken down once, and no times. So he was taken down 2 out of 3 attempts. So he was only taken down once in any of those fights. So when he wins, he's not being controlled and he's being taken down once or less. When he loses against Julian Erosa, when he has the draw against Kulabau, when he loses to Philly, and when he loses to Desmond Green, notice that he's controlled over 100 seconds in all 4 of those fights. And in all 4 of those fights, he's taken down 2 times, 5 times, and 4 times. So in any fight where he had a takedown attempt, even though in the draw against Kulabau was 0 for 7 on takedowns, he did get dropped, and he wound up losing a round there, and that wound up being a 10-8 round, I believe, and wound up coming out with a draw. So in those 3 fights, I'm sorry, I got to get that one off. So in those 3 fights that he's lost, you see him getting taken down and controlled for large swaths of the fight. And that's probably what Ilya Topuria is going to do to him. 2 for 5, 5 for 6, and 4 for 4. So in those 3 losses, he got taken down 11 times on 15 attempts. Can Topuria do that to him? Absolutely. Topuria is a great wrestler, and if Topuria does wrestle and get him to the ground, then he'll probably hunt for submissions and finish him down there. And Topuria throws with such heat that he's the kind of guy who can use his striking to enter on his takedown attempts. So that's what's making Ilya Topuria so absolutely dangerous. I went back and I watched the tape on him. I forgot how damn good he was. I know he's hyped. I know he's really good. I know he's 3-0 in the UFC. I know he's undefeated as a pro. But every once in a while, you really do need to go back and watch the tape on this guy to understand how good he is. I don't remember his striking being as good as it was on the regional scene until I rewatched it today. He's so good all around. This is such a bad matchup for Charles Jourdain, for a guy with sub 50% takedown defense. He has had 80% or between 79 and 80% of his UFC fights take place at striking range. If he can find a way to make that happen against Ilya, I think he'll have some success. But if he doesn't, you guys, it's going to be a rough night for him. And I do believe that Ilya Topuria will submit Charles Jourdain in the first or second round. So, yeah, I'm picking Topuria to win that one. The next fight, Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. This is the co-main event. I did a balls deep breakdown on my channel last night for this fight, so I will not spend a lot of time on it. But I am picking Deiveson Figueiredo to win this fight by decision here. But let's go through the stats. It's Brandon Moreno has a big tail of the tape advantage. He's 6 years younger, 2 inches taller, and has a 2-inch reach advantage. And then in addition to that, he's got an experience advantage. 3 more professional fights, over 100 more minutes of cage time, more time as a pro, and 25 more minutes in the UFC cage too. So Brandon Moreno with the tail of the tape and an experience advantage here. Deiveson Figueiredo is the better finisher at 85%, but Brandon Moreno has a 74% finish rate in his 19 wins, so he's excellent as well. 13 out of his 19 wins coming inside the distance. And then we've got Deiveson Figueiredo's been finished in 1 out of his 2 losses. It was by Brandon Moreno, and Brandon Moreno in his 5 losses has never been finished. When it comes to the striking, I give Deiveson Figueiredo the advantage here. He's showing a really nice 57% striking accuracy. He's showing crazy power at 1.95% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. And the striking defense is not great, though. But he does have a good chin. He's only been knocked down once in the UFC in 12 fights, while Brandon Moreno's only been knocked down once in 11 fights. But Brandon Moreno does have the much better striking defense, and he is the slicker boxer. But it's just that Deiveson Figueiredo can land 1 strike for his opponent landing 3, and usually the judges will be scoring it for Deiveson because he lands the heavier, more eye-popping shots, the more powerful shots. Both of these guys have had plenty of success with the wrestling. It's just been Brandon who's been going to it more. Brandon outcontrols his opponents at a 2-to-1 ratio, while Deiveson Figueiredo is about on parity with control time with his opponents. But Deiveson Figueiredo's opponents have attempted 21 more takedowns than Deiveson has, while Brandon Moreno has attempted 6 more takedowns than his opponents have. Brandon Moreno is probably the more likely guy to get a submission here. We did see Deiveson Figueiredo get his first UFC loss at the hands of Jussier Formiga. Formiga took him down and controlled about half the fight on the ground there. So that's why Deiveson lost. Brandon isn't really that kind of a wrestler. He has 21 takedowns, but he's really only he's gotten about 30 minutes, 35 minutes of control time. While on those 13 takedowns for Deiveson, he's gotten about 24 minutes. So both of these guys are averaging well over a minute of control time per takedown. And they're both getting controlled a decent amount of time on the ground as well. It's Brandon's fights are taking place at striking range about 65% of the time. And for Deiveson, it's about 60% of the time. I see both of these guys. I see this being another back and forth fight. I do know that Deiveson's been training at Fight Ready. I do need to change that on the Fight Camp. Fight Ready. So that is going to be important because we are going to need to see Deiveson have the chance to win some minutes on the ground here, maybe get the occasional takedown or stop Brandon Moreno's takedowns. So while Brandon Moreno's got an experience advantage and a tail of the tape advantage, I do believe that it's going to be Figueiredo with the striking advantage, and Figueiredo also has the strength of schedule advantage, while the grappling, I think it's close, but I think Brandon Moreno is the more dangerous grappler. What I saw when these guys fought each other was a very close fight that I thought Deiveson won the first time. When that was the Deiveson Figueiredo that I'm expecting to see this time. The Davison we saw the next time was somebody who had too bad of a weight cut, and he wasn't himself. There was no volume in the first round. There was no output. He was just slow. He was a step behind. He just didn't look like himself. So my thought is that Figueiredo can come back, be his old self. He's training at Fight Ready. If they get him ready, if he's on weight, if he looks good on the scales, I think he's got a really good chance, at least 50-50 to win this fight. And I love him to win by decision because Brandon Moreno's never been finished. And the guy's got a crazy chin on him, no quit in him whatsoever. And Figueiredo's also got an excellent chin. It's just that I think this fight is going to go the distance. I think these guys are very well matched. I don't think there's any quit in either of them. We just got to make sure that Davison is on weight. Now, I'm picking Davison Figueiredo to win by decision. I got that bet. I bet a half unit on it at plus 600 on FanDuel. I believe it was yesterday. I don't know where that's at. I can't imagine that line is still available. We will take a look here. Davison by decision is plus 460 now on FanDuel. I got it at plus 600. I think there's a ton of value there. That's a 14% implied probability. So I took a half unit to try to win 3 on that bet. It's a fairly big bet for us, a 6-1 shot, but I don't think it's 6-1 by the true odds. This is going to be a great fight. Another potential fight of the night. 2 fantastic champions here, a former champion and a current champion, a third matchup between these two guys. I can't wait for this fight, you guys. But the pick is going to be Davison Figueiredo by decision. But if Davison looks like garbage on the scales, I do think that Brandon will probably roll through him. But watch that line pre-fight. Watch that line because there's something about these fight-ready guys. I think there's a lot of guys that gamble at that gym and they put a lot of money down. And whether they've seen a guy look good or look bad, you usually see line movement on fight-ready fighters prior to a fight, and that line movement is usually very sharp. The most recent example of that was Andre Muniz against your boy, Eric Anders. That line moved in favor of Muniz huge amounts in the 12 hours before the fight, and he went out there and he cleaned up Eric Anders. And I think it's because maybe some information got out of that gym. I don't know. You just don't see lines move that much, honestly. And that was one that it's going to have me looking at this Figueiredo line before the fight and trying to get an idea if there are people at that gym that have an idea of how Davison is going to perform. Because if you see money coming in on Davison, that would be a good sign. And if you see money coming in on Brandon, it might be people from that gym betting against their guy if they know that, this is a horrible weight cut if he's not on weight or if he's not prepared. So that's something I'm going to be watching. Like I said, balls deep breakdown on that fight that I did last night. If you want to go deeper, please check that out on my channel. And that brings us to the main event, you guys. Looks like we're going to get this done today in about 2 hours, which is about where I want this thing. Francis Ngannou against Ciryl Gane. What a fight. I can't wait to watch this. I have a bet on it already, and there are other bets that I am considering. But also hate the Bon Queen Quee saying Brandon will leave us. Yeah, Brandon gambles, and he puts big money on fights, and I know he trains there, and he does an excellent show on YouTube with Santino DeFranco that I enjoy watching. Those guys are great, and I really enjoy their show. But those guys do gamble, and I know that they don't really talk about fighters coming out of that gym the week that they're going to fight. But you better watch that line movement, man, because it is something that that there are sharps at that gym that gamble that have information that we don't have access to. So sometimes the way that line moves prior to the fight can give you some information that you didn't have access to. Anyway, this one is another one. These guys used to train together in France. Francis Ngannou against Ciryl Gane. You've never seen two such terrifying men square off with the names Ciryl and Francis. But this will be the first time. And they're both huge. Ngannou's 35 years old. Gane, 31. They're both 6'4". It will be Francis with a 2-inch reach advantage. Both of these guys are orthodox fighters. Francis, formerly out of the MMA Factory, now fighting out of Extreme Couture, and Cyril fighting out of France, the MMA Factory. Francis Ngannou, 9 more professional fights, but because Cyril Gane fights the decision quite a bit, has 15 more minutes of cage time than Ngannou as a pro, but it's Francis Ngannou with 5 more years as a pro mixed martial artist. Francis Ngannou's background is in judo. Cyril Gane's background is in kickboxing. So Francis, 6 more fights at the UFC level, but even though he's got 6 more fights, it's Cyril Gane who has 30 more minutes in the UFC cage. Francis Ngannou has a 100% finish rate as a pro, and Cyril Gane has a 70% finish rate as a pro. And in their 3 combined losses, none of them have come inside the distance. Nobody has ever finished Francis Ngannou in his career. And if we look at the striking numbers, Cyril Gane, such a fantastic athlete, such a fantastic kickboxer, such great footwork, such great fight IQ, such fantastic understanding of distance management and how to use different weapons in order to maintain that range. He has the conditioning in order to be able to do that exhausting ritual of backing up and moving laterally. That kind of footwork is exhausting, but Cyril Gane does it like a ballerina. He throws 9.3 significant strike attempts per minute, and his opponents only throw 6.46. He lands 5.37, and his opponents only land 2.4. He basically lands 3 more significant strikes per minute than his opponents do. It's just a master class when Cyril Gane is on the feet, and there's really nobody that is more efficient than him and is more elusive than him, that is faster than him at this division, and is just more, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch as a fan sometimes that this guy is just not there to be hit, not frustrating when you got money on Cyril Gane and you're just laughing your ass off sitting back saying, this guy can't get anywhere near Cyril. He's like a ghost in there. And then there's Francis, who just, the guy looks like an action figure, looks like he was carved out of a slab of marble. He's got fists like canned hams. When he's standing up straight, his arms hang down to his knees. He's got an 83-inch reach. He's got as much power as any human being on the planet. This number right here, you guys, he lands a knockdown on 4.3% of the significant strikes that he lands. That means if he lands between 20 and 25 significant strikes in a fight, there's more than a 50% chance that he's going to land a knockdown. And when he lands a knockdown, he's undefeated. So this guy has otherworldly power. And even if you only land 2.4 significant strikes per minute against Cyril Gane in a 15-minute fight, that means you're going to land 36 significant strikes. And if you land 36 significant strikes and your name is Francis Ngannou, there's probably like an 80 to an 85% chance that one of those strikes ends the night. And that's what makes this fight so hard to pick, because Cyril Gane can win every second of this fight. And just like Jairzinho Rozenstruik beating Alistair Overeem in the last 10 seconds of that fight, in the last 5 seconds for that matter, all it takes is one shot, you guys, and that's what makes this such a fascinating fight. It's what makes it such a fascinating title matchup. It's what makes it such a fascinating, exciting, I can't wait to watch it main event. The grappling, in my opinion, it's not going to be a factor here. Cyril Gane does not have wrestling chops. He's got 21% takedown accuracy, and he's got less than 10% control time in 7 professional fights, or in 7 UFC fights. So he's keeping his fights at striking distance 91% of the time. So even if Cyril wants to wrestle, I don't think it would be advisable to do so, because that's not his comfort zone. That's not what he does well, and that's not how he's winning fights, other than in the Dante O'Mays fight, where he was 3 for 3 on takedowns and actually did accumulate some control time there. We've really not seen him go to that wrestling with any kind of success. And Francis Ngannou would be a bad guy to do it against, because you shoot a sloppy shot against him, he can clip you with something coming in, and he can throw you around like a rag doll, like he did to Stipe on Stipe's single leg attempt in the first round of the rematch. So I do believe that this fight is going to take place at striking distance. I do believe that Ciryl Gane can win a ton of minutes there. But the question that I can't answer is Francis going to land that one big shot? Evidently, Ciryl Gane got the better of the training sessions between these two guys when they did spar, when they were together. But, I would imagine that when you're like Francis Ngannou, you can never really show your teammates what you really bring in the cage, because if you were to hit them, you could hurt them so badly that you wouldn't even be welcome at your own gym anymore, because you don't want to be hurting your own teammates. You're supposed to be making those guys better. So I don't know what kind of a teammate Francis Ngannou would be, because I don't know if he could ever, while he's sparring his teammates, ever really kind of show him what he has, because he's so dangerous. He hits so hard. So Francis has stopped 72% of the takedowns against him as well. He's been controlled about 30% of his UFC career. That was almost entirely all, though, by Stipe Miocic. And Stipe Miocic's wrestling is not even in the same stratosphere as Ciryl Gane's. They're not comparable at all. Ciryl Gane does not wrestle like Francis Ngannou does. And I would suggest that if Ciryl Gane even does shoot a takedown, it means that he's losing this fight, because that's just not a path for him, in my opinion. While it was a path for Stipe, and Stipe was able to win minutes there, that's not Ciryl Gane's name. That's not his game. 91% of his UFC experience has been standing. I don't think it will be the time to try wrestling now when you got somebody as dangerous as Ngannou across the cage from you. When we look at the strength of schedule stats here, I'm giving the advantage to Ngannou, while both of these guys have really good ratios, 2.6 and 2.25. It's Francis who's fighting the more experienced competition. And when we look at the names on Francis's, the last 5 names, Curtis Blades, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and Stipe Miocic. And then we see, Derek Lewis, Alexander Volkov, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Dos Santos, and Tanner Bozer. And then before that, Dante Omaze and Rafael Pessoa, I believe. So, it's definitely Ngannou that's fought the better competition here. It's Ngannou who's got way more power. It's Ngannou who probably actually has a little bit of a grappling advantage, having that judo base. But it's Ciryl Gane who's younger. It's Ciryl Gane who has more minutes in the cage. It's just that, can he survive 25 minutes without getting hit once by Francis Ngannou in a way that can change the fight? And because I think that the answer to that is no, and because I don't think that there's any place for Gane to hide here, should it not be going the way he thinks it would go on the feet, I don't think he's going to have the luxury to be able to wrestle when he was uncomfortable on the feet, like Stipe did the first time when he beat him. And Ciryl Gane doesn't have the power in order to slow down Ngannou like Derek Lewis did. So how does Gane do this? Does he play that outside game? Does he move for 25 straight minutes and avoid the big shot from Francis and pick him apart? I think that's probably the most likely path to victory here. It looked like an all-new Francis in the rematch against Stipe. So I am going to pick Francis Ngannou, you guys, to win this fight by knockout in the second round. But the bet that I have on this fight is the scorecards no action on Bet Online for Francis Ngannou. So that means if the fight finishes inside the distance, then I lose if Gane wins, and I win if Ngannou wins. And that line is minus 105. So it's saying if there's, a finish, that there's probably a 52% implied probability that it's Ngannou that wins by finish, when I think it's more like 80%, because I don't think that there's any chance that Ngannou outpoints Ciryl Gane to a victory here. I think all of his equity is finishing equity. landing that big shot and finishing the fight, having the ref step in. While for Gane, I could see him getting a late finish if Francis death gasses, landing a big body shot that just sends him to the canvas. But what I most likely see happening is him doing what he did to Rosenstruik and Volkov and just kind of managing distance and outpointing him from the outside. So Gane by decision is another cheeky bet, in my opinion, that I think has some value at, excuse me, Gane by decision plus 300 here on FanDuel, plus 275 on DraftKings, plus 250 on BetOnline, and plus 333 on, I believe that's Caesars. That's Caesars, yeah. So that's a good bet, in my opinion. My bet is that either Gane wins by decision or Ngannou by knockout, but my official pick is going to be Francis Ngannou by second round knockout, you guys. And here we are, 2 hours into the first monetized ever episode of Uncle Weezy and Just the Tip. And now we're going to give you Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And it's going to be a very special one because you guys have given so much to me. I'm giving you not just one ass shaving this week, but 2 ass shavings. And the first one is going to be an ass shaving that I've already given you guys. And it is the, where is it? All right, here it is. Hani Barcelos over Victor Henry. I gave you this one last month. The fight was canceled after Just the Tip. So the first ass shaving of the week is going to be Ronnie Barcelos shaving the ass of the UFC debutant but veteran Victor Henry. He's not a bad fighter. I just think that Hani is going to be absolutely better everywhere. So where do we go here? Jack Della Maddalena. I like that. I like Kay Hansen. Gravely over Oliveira. I don't know. I could see Gravely getting finished. Do I want to bet on a guy who might be a better dancer than he is a fighter? And that's not a knock because Pereira is an excellent fighter, but come on. Are we going to not admit that the dude can dance? I mean, like that break dancing, the backflips, the beautiful, elaborate routine prior to the Tristan Connolly fight. This gentleman can dance, but he can also knock out Andre Fialho here. Frevola Valdez, not feeling it. Not feeling it here either. Definitely not feeling it here. That one's going to decision. This, I think, is close. Topuria, you don't need me to tell you Topuria is going to shave ass, though. I think you will shave ass. And I think Topuria, you know what? Let's do 3. Hani Barcelos, ass shaving of the week, number 1. Ilya Topuria, ass shaving of the week, number 2. And then I'm going to give you another one that a lot of people, I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb. This fighter is a favorite, but there's a lot of people picking against this particular fighter. And I'm going with Kay Hansen as my ass shaving number 3 of the week over Jasmine Jasudavicius. I like Jasmine. I think that she's got a nice mix of skills here, but I think the matchup is really bad for her. I think she needs to be able to wrestle offensively in order to win minutes. I think her striking defense is bad. I think she's going to leave holes on the feet for Kay Hansen to exploit. And when this fight goes to the ground, I think Kay Hansen is going to be dominant over Jasmine here. I think she's going to be the far better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, and I think that she's going to dominate those ground exchanges. Ass shaving of the week, number 3, you guys. Kay Hansen by third round submission over Jasmine Jasudavicius. Not 1, not 2, but 3 ass shavings of the week for you guys, the people who got me to 1,000 subscribers and got me monetized on YouTube. Thank each and every one of you guys for spending your Tuesday night with me, your host, Uncle Weezy, right here on Just the Tip. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks on UFC 270. God bless each and every one of you. And I will be right back here tomorrow on my channel at 10 o'clock Central Time for a balls deep breakdown on the Cody Stamann Said Nurmagomedov fight. And in addition to that, I will be on Pub Sports Radio tomorrow evening, 6 p.m. for the DraftKings show that we do, the DFS show with myself, DFS by the Numbers, Luke from Sparring with Reality Betting, and Monk. That's always a great show. check the description of this video for the link to the stats, the link to the main event breakdown I did with DFS by the numbers for the Francis Ngannou Cyril Gane fight, and then check the link is also in there for Stat Diggers. Please download the stats for free. I work really hard on them. You want to be able to take advantage of that and use them to help make better gambling decisions. You guys have a great night. Thanks for hanging out with me here, and I will see you tomorrow night right here on my channel for another Balls Deep breakdown. You guys take care. I'm going to pour myself a Paloma and take it easy the rest of the night after I put the timestamps on this video for you guys. Good night.